Taylor. Mark, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sean. So with today's agenda, we're going to be looking at just, again, a brief introduction of myself. I'll introduce myself a little bit more. We're going to look at what's new in Autodesk Inventor 2026, what's new in Vault Professional 2026, what's new in our Imaginet Vault utilities, which we'll be updating very shortly, and then a final session wrap-up. So I've been with Imaginet for 19 years. A lot of you probably already know me or talk to me through various meetings or training sessions. I am an engagement engineer with our Innovation Solutions Group, and I'm a certified Platinum instructor for Autodesk. I've been so for a couple of years now, one of only a dozen or so in US and Canada. And I'm also a certified Inventor professional. One thing to start off with is the State of Design and Make did just come out. I do like mentioning it, although it doesn't really pertain to Inventor or Vault topics today. I do encourage you to check it out. I will have a link at the end of the webinar for you to go get that. But it does a design and manufacturing industry report, and it has about 8 or so key insights from what it found from customer surveys. Very non-biased, mind you. Some things positive, some things negative, but definitely worth a look to take a look at the current state of design and make. Autodesk has done this for the past couple years, and they have some interesting trends that date back from 2023 through 24 to 25 in seeing how those things have changed. But without further ado, let's jump into Autodesk Inventor 2026. Now, there's been a tremendous amount of enhancements inside of Inventor over the past year. And as you know, with your subscription, when new releases come out for Inventor 25, such as the .1 and .2 releases, they actually start incorporating some of the features that are ready for 2026 early. So again, by utilizing your subscription dollars, you're getting that benefit early and often before you have to upgrade to 26. So there's been over 140 enhancements that have been added to Inventor. Now, some of those, I would say a majority of those are a lot of fit and finish or just do it sort of initiatives that you can actually vote on yourself, or you can recommend yourself through the Inventor Idea Station. You can basically go there and say, I got this wonderful idea for Inventor, and then the community votes on it. It gets enough votes and Autodesk will consider it. Over the years, I've had probably a dozen or so things that I've added to the Idea Station that they've incorporated. So I encourage you to do that. They also look at the Inventor Forum for things that are happening and things they should adjust. So a lot of things to cover. Obviously, we're not going to talk about 140 enhancements today, just the big focus ones. So we're going to be taking a look at general enhancements, part and sheet metal modeling, assembly modeling, drawings, and overall interoperability inside of Inventor 2026. So starting off with the general enhancements is the open and save dialog has been revamped. So I do have a nice dialog here. We kind of walk through some of the things that have changed. So you do have the full access to the workspace and library tree on the left-hand side for your computer. You'll also see that your Inventor project file selection has moved up to the top of the screen as well. So it's up in the upper left. In the lower right, we have file types and filters where you can individually choose IAMs, IDWs, IPTs, IDEs, a little bit more succinctly than you could in the past. You also have upfront open options. That's in section 4 there on the right-hand side. If you recall, in the past, you'd have to click on a file and then you have to click options to get to say, I want to load this model state or this design view or this positional rep. Now you can actually choose that directly from the right-hand side. And to go along with that are file details. So if you click from options over to details, you'll see the image I have in the lower left over here. It'll actually give you some information about the file's properties a little bit more upfront as well. And lastly, you do get direct iProperty access. So you can click on that and get directly to the iProperties without having to open the file. So maybe you need to fill something out quick, or maybe you just need to investigate the iProperties of something before you get into it. You can absolutely do that now in this new open dialog. There's a small change to the save dialog. When you click save, you now have the same ability with this right-hand side to choose how you want your thumbnail to appear. Okay. Next up is color scheme. So color scheme has now been exposed into your view tab. and the default is now dark. So when you launch Inventor, if you don't migrate your settings from a previous version, which you will get the option to, if you load fresh, clean Inventor, it will load in as dark. So you can choose from this pull down here if you don't want to go to the application options, but here you can choose your color scheme, whether you want a single or a gradient color or a background image. If you click settings, obviously it'll take you right to the application options to start making those changes, like to your background image. Furthermore, you do get exposure now to sketch line color changes for your color scheme editor. If you didn't know this already, you can change everything you want about your color scheme, all the way down to lines and glyphs and dimensions and everything else about your color scheme that appears. There's also some other small things that I just really love. First of all, in your application options, in your prompts, you can now do a search to find a prompt that may have been turned off and you want to turn it back on, or vice versa. But one thing that's really keen to me is the ability to recognize millimeter and inch if you have your caps lock on by default. And I am just so happy with that, right? I'm jumping for joy because sometimes I forget to turn my caps lock off. And I'm like, I typed in millimeters, why isn't it taking it? So now it actually will recognize the unit format in the opposite sense. Some other performance improvements, and this involves general enhancements to the code for certain things, right? So the file open and close performance has been increased for performance. We've also have multi-threading enabled now more for file saving, for the file save process, for assembly mirror, which is actually a newer feature inside of the enhancements for 2026. The drive workflows involving large parts and assemblies has been improved. The speed for switching between configurations or model states inside of Inventor. Faster file migration, and also punch with fillet or a pattern of a punch with a fillet, that performance has been increased. Searching within a content center library, and also, this is a last note here, but there's a separate Inventor Apprentice engine download now. So you can then download it separately. I mean, you still need to run through your own macros or VBA and you require that. Just make sure you go out and download the separate Apprentice engine download. It is available in the help system to get that link as well. Next up, we'll take a look at part modeling enhancements. So this is the time where we spend most of our day, inside of IPTs, modeling data to then put into assemblies or create drawings for, right? So there's been a lot of modern enhancements around the interface. So one of the enhancements this year has been for the pattern. There's a couple other ones we'll talk about too. But not only do they modernize the interface, they've also included a new irregular distribution option. So the way this works is when you are going to pattern something, you can say, well, this one actually needs to have a different spacing than the other ones. So I can select it on screen as the member and put in a new distance. Now, if I have subsequent ones, I can also choose additional irregular distances, and it's the distance from the last previous one that you had made, right? So this one is currently set at 9 millimeters for an irregular distance. The initial distance was 5. So the first one goes out 5. I choose my irregular distance to be 9. My second one will be another 9 from that, but the first one's still 5. So you can control a lot of different settings with this for both the X and Y direction, or if it's a curve-driven pattern, that will also work. If it's also a circular pattern, this also exists for circular references, circular patterns. You also have a new shaded display, so it's a little bit more visually appealing to see where your feature occurrences are going to show up. And again, this is in a feature environment, this is not in the sketch environment. Right? Also enhanced is the shell command. So now we have a new option called a rounded offset corners. This has also been enabled into the new modern interface as well. So no more dialog boxes with multiple tabs. It's all included inside of one palette. Simplify for parts. Now, previously, in order to do this, you would actually be turning features on and off, or you might do a model state around this. Now you actually have the simplify functionality that was available previously in assemblies at the part level. So here you can exclude bodies, you can remove features. You'll have a live preview here as well. And if you change something, you have to click the preview button again. And you can have presets for parts and assemblies that you might want to reuse through the organization. It does use shape recognition to remove features for anything that was imported as well. So it does understand like, hey, this might be a fillet, so let's recognize that and also remove it. So you have the ability to do some nice simplification here. You might be doing that so you can very quickly create a model state, or maybe quickly create a simplify on-off sort of conditional state, if you will. And that actually speaks to this slide for parameters. So the feature suppression has a new true false option, and that will show up in your user parameters. You can toggle that back and forth as well. And with parameters, you also have grouping available. So you can group multiple parameters together into your own user grouping of things. So it's not just tied into named or user parameters. It's more like, I want Mark's parameters to be right here, and these are the ones I care about. So you can create your own groups. And lastly, sheet metal has also seen a modern interface update. So this has been enhanced for the contour flange, for corner round, and for the punch tool that we see here. This has been done to basically simplify the user interface so you don't have some commands which are modern, some commands which are not. Definitely a more streamlined workflow, and you do get the direct manipulators, so the arrows to press and pull on things like your flanges previously. And you will get that nice realistic preview out of it. So before we go to assembly enhancements, let's just take a look at those few of those things inside of Inventor 2026. Let's start off with the shell tool. So up here, I'll go and select shell. And if you haven't already done this with your panels for this new modern interface, you can dock these directly into your browser bar. You can also put them on the right-hand side as well if you'd rather have them over there. And these will always appear here no matter what command you go into. So if I were to start my pattern command, this stuff would show up over here on the right. Or if I have it here on the left-hand side, it's always going to appear on the left-hand side for me. So let's just kind of run with that and see how we feel. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and select this face for shelling. Now the new rounded corners option gives me the ability to round out the corners. Now depending on your thickness, I'm just going to make this 5 millimeters, and how you're actually addressing your shell. Let's say I go to the outside, you're going to see it's going to round those corners on the outside here, as well as on the ones on the bottom. So if I quickly cancel that, you'll see those were sharp beforehand. Okay, so that gives you that new control there in the shell. Next up, let's look at simplify. So here inside of the part environment for this little CNC part that I have here, it's got a lot of holes on it, and I probably want to simplify this so I give it to somebody that doesn't take my design or reverse engineer my hole locations for this. Or maybe it just needs to be simplified in a much larger assembly. So here I'll choose simplify from the simplification panel up here. And again, you can see it popped up over on the left-hand side because that's where I docked my properties panel. And I'm going to do just my defaults here. So go ahead, no fillets, no holes, no chamfers. Let's preview that. I get a nice green preview there for what's going on. And I'll say okay. So there's my simplified part. And this will add a new simplify node to my browser, which I can then include in feature suppression or in a model state to very quickly turn something on and off, rather than having to do individual feature selection or to create something else that was a little bit more unintelligent for intellectual property protection. Okay. Let's go over to pattern, take a look at this new irregular pattern. So here on pattern, I'm going to just choose a standard rectangular here. And again, this does show up on the left-hand side again for me. There's the new irregular distance options for me. Let's start with this one here. And let's say we need 3 of those and 3 of those, and pick our directions. Okay, let's go bi-directional on the other one. And I'm going to space that one out 15 for now. Now up here, I'm going to do initial spacing of 15, but this last row I need to be moved over maybe 20. So here I'll choose a regular distance. You'll select your member, and then you can change your value. So let's say that's now 20 instead. Now if I do this on a bi-directional one, let's do that one down here. This would be my members I want to move. Let's do that for 20 that way. Here we go, the regular pattern. Same thing for a circular. I'll go ahead and start a circular pattern. Let's pick this feature, and this will be my axis. Okay. Now you can also use glyphs to control this too, right? So let me do a regular pattern first on this one, and that will be 45. I'll do another irregular angle. This one, which is currently 60, I'll do 45 from there, and I'll leave the rest of them alone. So there's my irregular pattern for circular. Okay. Let's jump back over to our presentation and continue on with assembly enhancements. All right, let's start off with mirror. So this is a new option for geometry and positional mirroring. So your mirror option can now actually be associative. These are the two options you see here in orange in the upper part of that dialog. The first option is associative, and the second option is a flat structure, or you might consider that legacy, where it only creates geometry mirrors. This will create a new browser node that looks very much like your part environment will have a mirrored components browser node. It will disable the mirror relationships and grounding because that's inferred to be true automatically. The sheet metal styles are going to be linked by default to the mirrored components. However, weldments and eye parts will be reuse only because they will not be able to be mirrored without being broken or going through convoluted eye part adjustments. This also does not allow for flexible assembly mirrorings. Your assemblies cannot be flexible to do this. Now, open degrees of freedom is not flexible, but just you can't use the flexible status. Eye properties will be synchronized, but instance properties will not be. This was also enhanced for performance for this operation through multi-threading, as I previously mentioned. And you can also copy components that you've created from mirrors. So you can keep taking that iteration and duplication even further. Model states have been updated for a more consolidated creation menu. You see that in the upper right. So when you create a new model state, you have more streamlined options. You can also create model states now in templates and have those stored. Again, a great reason to do that is if you're going to link model states, which is an assembly option that you can do, where it goes into each of the children assemblies or parts and links them together. It's very important to have common named model states. So putting those in your templates can help align to your company's goals around linking them. Now there's also a table editor too in the upper right, very reminiscent of eye parts and eye assemblies, to go through and be able to choose for suppressing and computing different options and settings for your model states, rather than having to go through the interface alone. So now you have a little bit more of a nice computational guide if you are more akin to spreadsheets and tables and rows. We now have that option available. You simply right-click like you would an eye part table and choose Edit via Table, and you'll get that option in the upper right. The blue dot indicators for your model state changes are also more enhanced with their tooltips to let you know what's been going on for each of those stages, if it's computed or suppressed in different ones. Other improvements to model states include zero quantity BOM items if you need to have a zero quantity for something. Browser tooltips for your edit pencils. So if you've never seen this before or known to do this, up here on the model browser next to stage 4 is a set of pencils. There's one, but 2 are grayed out. If you click those, it changes from member scope to factory scope, much like you have member and factory scope for eye parts and eye assemblies. So you have a very easy toggle there as well, and it'll give you a message letting you know you changed over to that scope editing. For Content Center, there's been some nice enhancements around the back-end engine for the libraries and how to search inside of them. But some of the things up front to you are thread designation and design accelerators. You can choose your thread designators. Your auto drop now works for assembly created patterns, not just part created patterns. If you recall in the past, if you wanted to pattern based on that, it had to be a part level pattern. Now it'll actually use circular, rectangular, and sketch patterns at the assembly level. You can have local and shared content center favorites, so that as a company, these are the ones we use all the time. We love these content center favorites, right? You can share those amongst your team so they always pull from the same set of favorites. Now, again, you get a standard content center from Autodesk out of the box. It's not really modifiable, right? If you're going to use Content Center properly, you're going to create your own libraries, your own part numbers, your own way that you want to have that recipe book create components for you. And some of the new options available for that are mass overrides and thread property definitions inside the family selection and editing of those families. So if Content Center is a must for your company, there's definitely some nice enhancements around that. Some assembly annotations. This is a little wordy, but basically what we're going to be saying here is now you can export your assembly annotations to step 242 with product manufacturing information, or JT. The assembly annotations are going to be exported with the semantic data associated to them for thread notes and welding annotations as well. Only the top level assembly and part level ones will be exported, and annotations from the part level will be exported as invisible, okay? Now, if you've never done GD&T with Inventor before, it's been there for quite a few years. And usually your industry either does this or they don't. However, when you bring in new employees, sometimes they don't have this training or education. Sometimes they get lost a little bit in everything you can do inside of Inventor around 3D model annotations. We actually now have a course at Imagineit for industry training on geometric dimensioning and tolerancing in either 2 or 4-day options. This is a software agnostic course that teaches you about GD&T, right? So what do you mean by concentricity or parallelism or runoff, right? Or datums. Maybe these are foreign words to some of your employees. We actually have training now to teach them that, and then you can incorporate that education and that knowledge into your usage of Inventor for product-based manufacturing and the ability to export that data directly to machines. Further, with assemblies, here's some small things, right? Again, I always like to talk about some of the small things which I find interesting. Frame Generator now has a double-click edit for end treatments, and you can also access them from the browser directly for that edit. There's also the ability to adjust your rotation angle anywhere from -360 to +360 degrees. So you're not kind of messing with the positives and negatives, your angles anymore. Tube and Pipe has S-key custom values if you're doing isogen output from Tube and Pipe. And the design accelerators for involute splines have 2 new types for them as well, if you use a lot of involute splines. So let's take a look at that patterning tool. I want to take a look at that briefly. All right, so here I have an assembly I'd like to mirror. So we're going to grab this assembly here, and we're going to mirror it across this work plane. Now, right now it's at the create flat structure. Notice I do have some weldments in here. As soon as I choose to go create mirror pattern, those change over to reuse, okay? And you can see mirror relationships and ground new components are grayed out. I'll go ahead and click next and generate these new components. So here's my new mirror components node in the tree here, okay? And this is a very associative connection, okay? So watch what I'm gonna do here next. I'm gonna activate this assembly. Oh, let me get out of that command there. Let's go into our assembly one. There we go. And we're gonna do a place from Content Center. Grab the right place command. And I'm gonna grab this AS1420 metric bolt. Let's go ahead and drop it in here and let it auto size. Let's rotate that a little bit. There we go. Here's our happy little bolt, and we're gonna pattern that as well. There we go. So it's placed in all those holes there for us. Okay, let's go ahead and hit return, and we'll notice that actually it patterned it as well without me having to reselect it. So it's an associative pattern. What's in that assembly is going to continue to be patterned how I see fit. If I need to go back and modify it, of course you can edit it, right? But initially it does that nice patterning for me, and it did reuse those components. It did not create new ones. All right, let's go back to our presentation and talk about drawings. Next up for drawings, we have break views will now create a sketch for you. So you can actually lock your break lines on break views. If you have previously created drawings from, let's say, Inventor 2023 or something like that, When you bring the file forward, it will create that sketch for you. It just won't be locked into any dimension. So you simply have to choose to edit the sketch in your break view and then assign some dimensions to it, much like you can do with a section view and things like that. For projecting detail and section views, there's also now a smooth option to make this look more visually appealing when you have those kind of odd projections, if you will. We now also have a sum dimension option. And the way this will work is you create your initial dimension, 30 degrees here. You start your second dimension, which would be the sum dimension that you want. You're then going to right click and choose dimension type, angular sum, or linear sum, and place your new dimension type in. Alt-V will now also work to hide components. And again, this is something you want to do based on priority. So if you're calling a drawing environment, if you shift and right mouse button, you can change your priority for selection. That allows you to select either a line or to select the entire part. Next, let's look at interoperability enhancements. And this is going to focus primarily around building components in Revit. So there's been a new iProperty added to your Inventor files called Revit category. And this will help when you're trying to transfer something to an RFA, which is a Revit family, to be utilized in a Revit RVT or Revit project. This is exposed not only in the iProperties window, but also in your bill material list as a Revit category you can assign. There's also been a change to your BIM content ribbon, and they've moved around some of the access points for creating certain content. So for instance, you can now see in the BIM content ribbon, when you do a BIM exchange, RVT has its own section, RFA has its own section. So let's expand on that a little bit. There's a placement command which allows you to choose the origin and orientation. So maybe it's a Revit-based project point or a survey point or an internal origin, or you want to use the Inventor's view cube for it. Just as a reminder, Inventor and Revit have different ups, right? In Revit, up is a different orientation axis than it is in Inventor. There's also the include properties where you can pick all the properties you'd like included to be passed into this RFA. And lastly is simplify and export. So if you want to have a template selection, which version of Revit it's going to go to, because you can choose an older version of Revit that is version specific for how you create those RVTs, and then the structure that it creates. You can also create IFC 2x3 now, as well as the 4x3, which has been available previously. So if you're ever asked to produce IFC exports, you have a new option for that as well. Now, if you're really into building product design and you've looked at informed design for Inventor, what this is basically is the holy grail for creating Revit content from Inventor. Essentially, you can import and export code blocks from Inventor, which are traditionally done with iLogic assemblies. These code blocks can work through a common catalog with ACC Bridge so that Revit users can consume those. So imagine for a moment I create chillers that go on top of a building. And all these different AC units have some different configurations. We fabricate them, but our clients are always asking for these new prototypes and these new options, or maybe the curb for the way the AC unit sits on there is different. Maybe there's a different pitch to the roof. And my iLogic design inside of Inventor helps me develop those sheet metal models. Well, they don't care about the actual parts. They just need to know that the chiller and the curb that it sits on is going to fit my building correctly. So I can have my iLogic design created. The Revit user consumes information from this catalog for these code blocks, and it automatically generates the BIM content for them to consume. So it becomes a little bit hands-off for you having to create these new pieces of content, and you'll get spec'd into a design for a Revit building much, much faster. So this is a fantastic technology. It's been out for a couple years now, and there's been some nice enhancements to it here as well. All right, we're going to shift gears now, and we're going to go to Vault Professional 2026. Now, the focus inside of Vault Professional 2026 has been primarily around these 4 key areas: workflow efficiency, growth management, there's some exciting things there, install and deployment, and interoperability. Now, again, some of these things have come out previously with Vault 2025 and the dot releases. Other things are brand new for 26. So let's talk about workflow efficiency first. Up first is the move command. So the move command is about to get a change about how you focus, right? What does that really mean? So if I go to move a file from one folder to another, right? Taking this bolted connection and moving it to another location, you will get a prompt to confirm the move. And you can say, well, always prompt me or never prompt me again. I know what I'm doing when I move stuff around, right? You have that ability to control that. It's defaulted as always prompt. Now, the other enhancement to this, though, is controlling where your focus goes after you move it. So the new default option is target location. So let's say I move a file from folder A to folder B. Instead of staying in folder A and saying, where did it go? I want to start working on it. If you change your focus to the target location, as you move it, it will take you to folder B, okay? If you don't like that, you can change back to the source for the focus location, and that will be more legacy and keep you where you're at. That might be important if you're doing searches. Like here in the lower right, I'm doing a search for the word piece, and I found 9 pieces. Maybe those 9 pieces need to go to 9 different folders. It would be annoying to go to a new target location and then have to go back and research every time. So this is a setting that you can adjust on your own personal workstation for your own options depending on what you're doing. But just take a beat and say, I'm going to do a bunch of moves. Is it better for me to have, jump from target or source, right? If it's more common one way or the other, stick to that method. If it's going to be, well, I need to do this for a bunch of files, take the moment, go back and change the setting, and then start doing your moves, right? Next up is a hyperlink user-defined property. And this one, as well as the move focus, was added in the dot releases for 2025. But this allows you to create a clickable property link. So as a property you'd have in your property browser, you can click on, it'll take you to wherever that is directly, right? You can do that with a web link or with an email address. It has to be formatted a certain way. So you can see we got brackets, Autodesk brackets, parentheses, the link, parentheses, and that will create the link for you there. There's also a thin client link property. This is a brand new property. And you can expose this inside of your browser for the thin client link, where if you were to click on it, it will take you to that thin client location. This is something you can have also to your ECO notifications, as something that will show up for someone to click on when they get an email from the system. Now, this is something that we've actually had at Imaginet for years, where you could right-click on a file and get the URL and copy it and paste it somewhere. But this is now exposed to everybody. So everybody now has this feature. Makes it a lot more user-friendly to integrate this with other business systems, to share that link around. That link will remain stable as long as you don't delete the file and re-add it. If you move it around, it doesn't care. It understands what that link is. So here's a new feature for 26, okay? The trash bin, not recycle, right? Recycle bins kind of never get emptied, right? My computer has a recycle bin. I haven't emptied it for 2 years because I still feel like I might go back there and get something. Trash bin's a little bit different. A trash bin will automatically empty itself after 30 days, or you can uncheck that box if you want to treat it more like a recycle bin, right? But essentially, if you delete something, it's going to go to this trash bin in your browser. It's a brand new button that's going to show up on the left-hand side, a brand new item in your tree, right? It's temporary storage, so administrators can go there and say, yeah, I think you're right. I think we should delete that, right? And emptying the trash bin is then when it's going to permanently delete the file. The problems you've had in the past where we gave access to delete something, they deleted it, and now we've lost that file forever, unless we go back and recover it from a Vault backup that we restored to another machine to get it, or hopefully it was still in someone's local workspace. That's gone. Now you have a trash bin as another stage of let me check your deletions before you process them. So it does work off your traditional delete command. And what if you say, I didn't want to delete it? right? You can go to the trash bin. Here you can see it on the right-hand side highlighted there, and you can restore, or you can choose the option to permanently delete, right? So users can restore files or folders with or without the contents from the trash bin. The user that created it can also delete it, mind you. So if they were responsible for adding a junk file into the system, they can also not have to worry the administrator to delete it. They have that ability. But the admin is Chuck Norris. He can get rid of anything, right? So when you want to elevate yourself to empty the trash bin or be a library administrator, you can log in as Chuck Norris and get rid of it. There's also a new delete from trash bin permission if you want to go into the granularity of your controls. So there is a file delete conditional and a file delete unconditional option now available for roles and permission assignment. Now let's talk about growth management. Project and data archive. Hallelujah, right? How many times have you thought, I'm never going to touch that file again. It's just sitting in my vault and taking up space. I wish I could archive it instead of having it backed up all the time. So as data gets added to the vault and it grows, large amounts of data to manage really isn't that easy anymore. So you might archive it in more untraditional ways where you might check it out and check it into an archive vault, but then you lose all the version and revision history of that file to that point. Well, now you can actually right click and choose to archive it, okay? Now, this can also be controlled by life cycle state. So maybe you move something into obsolete and you move it to obsolete, now it goes to the archive as an example. But this will end up decreasing your recovery time when you restore a vault for any reason. Okay, and we'll get to that in a moment for what this really does. Now, just because it's archived doesn't mean you can't still access it. So let's say I take a file that's obsolete and it's been archived and I move it back to work in progress and resurrect this project from the grave, right? Any new versions you create will not appear in the archive. Only the archived versions will, okay? So the archive doesn't remove your files from accessible use. It just says, we're gonna push a bunch of files in your file store over to this other location, okay? And we'll get into that a little bit deeper here. Okay. So first of all, on the ADMS side, the archive is not enabled when you upgrade to Vault 2026. You have to turn it on. You have to enable it. So you would right click on your Vault and you enable archive. You specify the location for where this is going to go. Once the Vault is enabled for archive, you cannot disable archive. So once you go this route, you can't go backwards. So just remember that. If you decide you want to move your archive though, move the location of where it was, you use the move file store command and it has new options there to move your Vault archive file store location. Okay. You'll also now have additional information in your ADMS console to let you know how big your archive file store is and how many files are in that archive. This will also only be available on your publisher in a replication environment, not on your subscribers. So when it comes to backing up your Vault, there's new options for this. So you can include or exclude archive file stores. So again, let's imagine for a moment my Vault is 1 terabyte in size. And there are so many projects that we need to archive. I go through and I archive them all, right? Or the majority of them. Now I've archived maybe 3/4 of a terabyte into the archive. When I go to back up my Vault and I exclude the archive, my Vault backup will only be 250 gigs. It won't be a full terabyte. So this allows the recovery back of your most current data to be much faster. There's a new toggle in your script. You have to make sure you adjust for this archive or not to archive. So by default, again, you need to include archives on the script for the backup. If you don't do anything, it's not going to grab the archive. So depending on how you like to do this, maybe you have different scripts that will run the archive backup once a month instead of weekly or nightly. What if your Vault is only 50 gigabytes? Well, you're probably not worried too much about this archive stuff. But we have clients that have 11 terabytes for a Vault file store, right? This is very important to them. Now, when you go to archive something, initially it's going to say to be archived. There's a new property that says, hey, we're going to archive this. Well, I sat there for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes refreshing my Vault screen until I went searching for why. I'm like, why hasn't this archived yet? Why hasn't this moved over to my archive file store? It's because at night, at roughly at 2 a.m., your archive will process at that time. So it's not going to be processed in the archive during work hours. So if I decide that, well, I didn't want to archive that, you probably saw in a previous slide there, I can cancel the archive. So before I get to that 2 a.m. mark, I can say, no, I forgot, I still need to use that a whole lot more. Don't move it over there. Cancel that process. That will take effect for you then. Next up is account disablement. So this is something where you can set a timeout or a bomb out on your accounts. So let's say I have a temporary user that we've hired. Maybe it's an intern, right? And I don't want to leave his account active longer than he's going to be with us. So I know his last day is going to be 3 months from now on the 21st. I can set his timeout on his account to basically say, well, you can no longer have access to the vault after that time period. So this is a new setting you can have as disabled on inside of your user profile that you're adjusting. Now, if someone does get disabled or locked out, there's also a contact detail for disabled users. So this will appear when someone tries to log in and they've been disabled. It's going to say, in my case, contact the help desk at 800-867-5309. And we can help get your account re-enabled if need be. For install and deployment, this is a setting that was included in one of the dot releases for 25, but this is the ability to deploy client configurations. So now you can actually, when you're saying, well, these are the settings we want for everybody, right? Let's go ahead and distribute those options, but also maybe reset them because someone has their add-in acting funny, right? So I want to adjust all the prompts back to default because I have a guy that turns them off all the time, right? He doesn't understand that he can just modify files and ignore Vault messages. So you turn off those prompts. I want to basically push that out to stop him from doing that. So you can do this for Vault client options. You can do this for copy design settings for Vault Professional. And there's actually some new enhancements there for copy design too, such as reusing library files. That's an option you can have always turned on. There's also some new branch options for copy design too for that. Also, Vault add-in settings can all be pushed down. For interoperability, this is some exciting things. Basically in the 2025, I think it was .2 release, and has been exposed a little bit more in 26, is Vault data APIs. So this allows you to have Vault and the data APIs to be able to connect to things like MS Teams, Power BI, or Slack, or to create your own custom UIs or web interfaces. So if you wanted a dashboard with all the change orders and everything that's known about the Vault and the audit trail of what's going on shown in a Power BI spreadsheet, you can do that. It exposes a tremendous amount of data if you have a programming staff to do this. Of course, at ImagineIt, we have staff that can assist with this as well through implementations or through our software development group to create these sort of customizations if you need to. But it's an exciting way you can make the Vault data more extensible to your business. And lastly, we're going to talk about some things with the Vault utilities. Some of you may already use these, some of you may already know about them, but I'm going to tell you also what's coming in our Vault utilities. So first of all, utilities for Vault Client from ImagineIt, these are free to our clients and our subscribers. So if you've done implementations with us, if you have Productivity Now, if you have Vault licenses with us, you get free tools to make your Vault client work more effectively for you. Things such as standard folders, the copy URL I talked about, more advanced consumable creation for steps, DXFs, and PDF files to be saved inside or outside the Vault. But basically the top three things you focus on with these are taming your folder structure, extracting and providing information, and creating those synchronized consumables. Now we also have Vault Client, we also have utilities for Vault Server. Now these actually have a cost to them, but usually only need a license or two of them, okay? But these are more geared for the IT professional in mind. So peace of mind Vault monitoring with email notifications of backups, the ability to extract your entire vault to Excel and make changes and mass renames to remediate duplicates, being able to do audits on your security for your users, things of that nature. So these are pretty low cost, but very beneficial. We find about 80 to 85% of our clients utilize these tools in one way or another. Now, what's coming for our utilities? These should be out in a couple weeks or so, but we're going to have updates to our transition triggers to build configurable lifecycle triggers for files, items, change orders, and folders. We're going to have the ability to hide vault commands in case you have users that are doing things they shouldn't be doing or you told them a million times not to. Also, more improvements for standard folders. For the Vault server utilities, we're going to have a new ability to update the account login settings based on Vault group membership, and improvements for Vault backups for file list backups in case you're backing up just your database. So an enhancement to our GUI-based backup tool. So rounding out today, we're going to have some time for Q&A, but by all means, if you have questions that we didn't have time to address here, be sure to reach out to your Imagine account manager for details and insight. We also have links here for the 2025 Design and Make report from Autodesk, the Imagine client utilities and server utilities if you want to learn more about that. And for detailed what's new guides for Inventor and Vault, make sure you check out the online help for those products. And I'll go into